Welcome back to the First Down Saints YouTube channel where I provide daily YouTube videos on the New Orleans Saints, covering them, talking about them, predicting what's going to happen, all sorts of things. If you're a New Orleans Saints fan, subscribe. You won't regret it. At least I hope you won't. Okay, so today we are going to talk about what position the Saints must absolutely draft in the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft. So really, there are two positions that I think they can't go wrong at. Um, but there is one position that I prefer strongly. Okay, uh, so the first position that I think they can't go wrong at, obviously, is wide receiver. Now, as it stands, the wide receiver room looks good. You have Chris Olave, obviously breakout rookie from last year. You got Rashid Shaheed, another breakout rookie from last year, who including myself, didn't expect to turn out as good as it did. Once he started receiving more snaps at actual receiver, he started showing what he was actually capable of. So going forward, Shaheed is honestly probably one of the best number three receivers in the league, if not a solid number two if he wasn't in New Orleans. And obviously now the Saints did manage to work something out with can't guard Michael Thomas to just try one more time, man. Try again, and that makes me so happy. I've always been on Michael Thomas's side. Every time I would see a fan online saying, "Oh, he doesn't want to play for the Saints. He's faking the injury," I like, dude, come on. I would call him out. I would call him an idiot. That's just absolutely ridiculous to think that man did not want to be on the field. I don't care what anybody says. Anybody that watched him week one of last year and seen how intense he was and happy he was to be playing again, I don't know how you could end up saying, he didn't want to be on the field. But anyway, that's the whole other subject beyond the point. Now that being said, as far as wide receiver goes, as much as I love Michael Thomas, you just have to assume at this point that he is not going to play very many games. You have to assume that to protect yourself from, being down a receiver and our receiving room looking like it did a couple years ago. So that being said, that is the first position I would not mind them taking in the first round. I don't think they could go wrong there. I wouldn't be mad at it. Now, we all know the Saints will probably end up drafting some linemen, but um, the position I think we absolutely must address is somewhere on the defensive line, whether that is a defensive end or a defensive tackle, nose, whatever you want to call it. So, reason being, Cam Jordan is going to be 34 when the season starts. Last couple years, his sack numbers are still up there, but if you really watch him, they're not high quality sacks, and he's starting to decline. Which, I mean, he's, like I said, going to be 34. He's had a great verge of Hall of Fame career. If he can, keep his sack numbers up a little more for a couple more years, he will be in the Hall of Fame. But he is starting to slow down a little bit. I think anybody with eyes can tell you that. But he's still a really solid player, starter level, obviously. But on the opposite end, Peyton Turner, first round pick from a couple years ago that has not panned out. He's had some injuries. He's just been disappointing. He's only played in 13 games out of a possible 32 or something like that. That's just unacceptable. Only has 3 sacks in those 13 games. He did an interview recently. He said, now that he's probably going to be the starter, he's ready to step up and take it to the next level, and prove why the Saints took him in the first round. Uh, Obviously lost Marcus Davenport to the Vikings. I know he only had half a sack last year, but something else was going on that we didn't know about. Weight issue, the amputee of his finger. Something was going on because he's a more talented player than what he showed last year. And I think the year before last, if you watch him, that would prove it. And I wish him the best with the Vikings, even though I hate the Vikings like we all do. I wish Davenport the best. So if they go the defensive end route, like I said, I wouldn't blame them, uh, because of the things that I just mentioned. Defensive line. We lost Anyamata, really good player, but obviously wasn't the same post PED suspensions. We did sign Shepard and Saunders, who I think are going to be really solid signings, especially Saunders. But Shepard more the rotational depth type of player. Saunders will probably be your starter there. Malcolm Roach will probably be your opposite starter. Glad we re-signed him. I really like him. A really talented young player he is. But I think if the Saints have a chance at in the first round to address a premier player right there at that position. A big name, talented guy. I think they have to go for it and just hope that he pans out better than the past previous first round defensive line selections have. I think that maybe with Ryan Nielsen now being the Falcons defensive coordinator and gone out of New Orleans, I'm curious to see if we'll see a different type of body type, I guess you could say, that the Saints draft or go after. Um, because, Nielsen was a fan of those big, huge guys like Turner, Davenport, real freak athlete type guys. So I'm really curious to see, what they're looking for this year in the draft, and if we do draft a defensive lineman, what type of player he will be. But yeah, like I said, wide receiver can't go wrong there. I know they were looking at Jackson Smith and Jigba, um, which would be, I mean, in my opinion, he's the second best receiver in this class. That would be a huge pickup to pair him with the other Ohio State guys, of course. But, like I said, my preference is going to be somewhere on the defensive line, whether that be defensive end or defensive tackle. Personally, I think you go with defensive tackle just because I think you got to give Peyton Turner 1 year as the starter, not behind Davenport, not behind Granderson. Let Peyton Turner cook, see what he can cook. And if not, then the next year you address it in free agency or through the draft. But this year you got to go defensive line because last year the Saints did struggle at times stopping the run, especially zone-based running schemes. That's why I was really happy with the Saunders signing because he's fast, twitchy defensive lineman that can beat the blocks and really shut down those zone-based teams. So yeah, as always, man, I appreciate you guys watching. Subscribe for more daily, yes, daily Saints videos. As always, man, thank you guys.